Yes, this one so that people are less likely to trip.
Yeah, I think I need to right now.
Yeah, some of it is in Hebrew, as it's planned also for my students, and they call them cheat sheets. You think of cheat sheets that we cheat the teachers on the test. My students think so too, but I think that this turbo, come on. When I say cheat sheet, it means that I'm letting my students think that I'm cheating them. Actually, they are learning from looking at it. This is how I cheat them. Okay, so here we go, guys. This is familiar, but I'm not. I didn't switch the presentation. I start with the same one. That just a recap over the last time we talked about Israel, America. We compared the different types or mechanisms of, acting or performing democracy or practicing democracy. I don't want that to happen. And there we go. We talked about the let's call it how the Prime Minister or the President are decided. We talked about the balance between stability of the government and the voice that the minority is given. The more voice the minority is given, the more voices there are in the parliament and the less stability we have. Right? So here it's very stable. We've seen it. It works for over 12 years, and it's very, very hard to impeach a president. On the other hand, the whole minority is not speaking, basically. If you have a majority, either here in the parliament or it is the president, he does what he wants to do for that time that he was given. So, a lot of stability, less voice for minorities. In Israel, minorities are yelling all the time, and they are changing the stability, and they are tilting us, and they are changing the balance, and government changes all the time. So this is basically what we have here. We talked about the three branches, and I think that it's quite a quick recap. Now, the colors are changed, but it's the same information. It's the three main issues or three main axes, like X, Y axes and so on, that we are always looking at. And we talked, those are Israeli controversies or elements or issues that we are dealing with, but there is the same, it happens the same in America. Church and state, okay? Here, in Israel, we talk about marriage, whether it be religious or civilian, what happens when there are two people in love, but they're not of the same religion, what happens in Israel, can they get married and so on. Enforcement of Shabbat, shall we do that or not, and so on. Here in the States, the stuff that is relevant to us here, we're talking about, for example, the state of allegiance. Will we put under God or not put under God? Okay? Or what happens when a democratic law is contradicting a religious law? We all remember that, everyone knows that, remember that, like maybe it was 3 years ago, a medical doctor was shot in church because he was performing abortions by a religious person that simply believed that it's okay. So, etc. In Israel, there is also who is a Jew, the definition of a Jew in the eye of the law, and what happens if they change the definition. They might change our definition by the Israeli law and so on. Okay, so we all have the same issues. I mean, it's the same, basically, big issues, but different details. social and economy, it's almost like in the States, okay, the responsibility of state to its citizens' welfare. For example, President Obama decided he takes more care for the people, and he acted a law called Obamacare, or Social Security. On the other hand, the other side will say, we don't need you to tell me where to put my money. I'll take care of myself, of my health, and I don't need Social Security. So they are different. But again, it's the same thing. In Israel, it's the same. How much will the government take care? In Israel, there is mandatory health insurance for everyone. Mandatory, automatically taken from the taxes, Social Security fees. Okay? How much taxation? Same issues, right? Social environment issues. Shall we drill by the coast of America or not? In Israel, same elements, etc. Again, police power, how much search, Miranda here, okay, petting down, how much can a police officer do to a citizen, etc. Foreign domestic, we all touch it. In Israel, what would be the issues? Territories for peace. Shall we give territories in order to get peace? What kind of a peace? How much of the territories? Okay, Palestinian state. It's all over. Jerusalem, same issue. Golan Heights with Syria, same issues, etc. In America, what's the last issue? Immigration. Cuba. Iran. The agreement with Iran, we were just talking about. The relations with Israel, it's also foreign relations. So those basically are the issues. Now, why am I touching it? Because it goes to the next topic, which is the parties, the different parties. I'm now going to talk about the parties. There are 11 parties that are running right now on the coming election, and I forgot to mention, of course, we all know, today is the 5th of March 2015. In 12 days there will be the election, 17th of March. So, yes.
Why Sephardic, Ashkenazi,
Oh, we're not there yet. We'll get there. We'll get there. I bet you we'll get there. Okay, so I'll explain what each kind of column says. Likud is, or wherever it's here, is the name of the party. I gave it also in Hebrew again for my students. And I will usually refer to this party as Bibi. Bibi wants, Bibi did, Bibi that. So Bibi is kind of my nickname for the party, or what I usually say. So you will know what I'm talking about. Here it kind of gives us the political affiliation or the political direction. He is kind of central, tending to the right. Okay, so he's kind of a righty central. It used to be much more righty, but when he took the wheel, so it had to go a little to the center. Benjamin Netanyahu, it's his name. That's the leader's name. I always try to put the leader's name. Sometimes there's no real leader, but you'll see how I'll play around it. His picture, if you don't know it yet, and it is this and that. This is what I just added just before we started. It took me some time. Yeah.
What's the language in the middle?
Here?
Yeah.
It's script. It's Hebrew script.
Oh, okay.
Handwriting.
Sorry.
Or another font. I trained them in different fonts, handwriting, and so on. So it says here, it shows here who are the voters, what's the constituents that are voting for him, what public is it trying to get to. There will be secular or light Orthodox, the ones with the needed kippah, not the Charedim, right? Sephardic Ashkenazi, similar amount, the word amount is missing here, similar amount of Sephardic Ashkenazi, you see it here. Oh, similar Sephardic Ashkenazi ratio, there we go. My English is still okay. Catch me if you can on my Hebrew. On the English, I don't guarantee anything. And lower middle class of those people. So that's basically where he's going for. And this is quite this is the same thing in Hebrew. It is quite rare. Those graphs that I try to put to every party, usually you don't see such. It's kind of politically incorrect to do that, but you usually don't see such polling. But they try to see if Sephardic and Ashkenazi people vote for them and how much. I mean, of course they vote for them, but how much of them? And you can see that the Likud is quite the People's Party, right? They're getting kind of the same amount of Sephardic and Ashkenazi. You will see other parties that are different. So, and this is not usually done. We call it, yes.
Though Sephardic and Ashkenazi Jews in Israel tend to consider certain issues more important than others, in other words, you have a differential in terms of the Ashkenazi and Sephardic as to what they think is more important.
Yes, naturally. There are different populations. We all want to say that we are all Jewish and Israelis. Under the surface, there are always those forces that, of different affiliations and different.
How would you describe that difference? In other words, is certain things more? What things would be more important?
I will touch upon them as we go. I don't want to go there. It's not the topic, but I will touch it. Yes.
What is the proportion of Sephardic to Ashkenazi in?
My guess among the Jewish population around 60 to 40, 55 to 45, little more Sephardic than Ashkenazi.
More Sephardic
Yes.
than Ashkenazi?
Yeah. Yes. It wasn't the case years ago, but it's now the case. Okay, they are they are the common people. Yeah. All right. So, and very important, the ticket. Now, every big party has its platform. If it's a small party that is kind of one issue party, then they don't have platform on every single, issue that we just talked here. So not every party will have a formed opinion in each of the issues, but most parties try to get to bring or platform on each issue, but there is a main issue. For example, the Likud party is going mainly for security right now. Okay, there were times that the elections were about something else. Right now, Netanyahu is trying to divert the public debate, everything towards security. Iran and the other security threats that Israel is facing around it. He tries to show as Mr. Security. This is his field. He doesn't want to talk about economy because it's not complimenting him. He doesn't want to talk about the social elements, which are kind of, overlapping. There is a huge cost of living in Israel, a huge cost of housing in Israel. There is a bubble that's forming now and is about to explode. Who knows when? People can't get houses. Young couples can't get a place. They live with their parents and so on. And he couldn't control the bubble from forming. So he doesn't want to talk about it. So right now, security is what he tries to do. And you see that wherever he tries to talk, wherever he gets a chance, he diverts it to somewhere else. Okay. Here is the Avodah. Avodah, or today they are called, or they call themselves the Zionist camp, because they are being accused of not being Zionist enough. They built the country, they built Israel, they are the forming fathers, but they are not, they are trying to beat that, the other side, the right side of the map is trying to delegitimize them, so they call them the Zionist camp. Okay, Bougie is not a nickname of Yitzchak, of Isaac, it's a nickname that his mom gave him, something that has to do with a candle of my life, light of my life, in Turkish or something. But he got his name, okay? He's the leader right now. His voters, look at the ratio of Ashkenazi versus Sephardi. Okay, 55% Ashkenazi, 22 Sephardic. So you can see that it's very clear and very significant, the different significant here. Okay? A lot of Ashkenazi vote for him. He approaches secular people, higher middle class, and Ashkenazi.
So I see 77% total. Where's,
They didn't want to answer. They didn't want to answer. Yeah, I think if you sum all of them, yeah, if you sum it, many didn't want to answer. These 77 together, if you count the 38 and 42 that we had before, it's also 77. It's the amount that didn't want to answer. Here is the rising star of last time, one of the two rising stars of last time, last elections, and well, it took quite a bump about a month ago. Again, something to do with Ashkenazi Sephardic voters and what we call the demon that came out of the bottle, basically. Okay, about Sephardic and Ashkenazi, problem. Again, it's called Habayit HaYehudi, which means the Jewish home. Hardly no one remembers the name of the party. We'll call him Bennett, because his name is Naftali Bennett. He's American. His mom is American. Speaks as English as I'm speaking Hebrew, with an accent. But he grew up in Israel, so he's also American. We'll call him Bennett, so this is the name I put here. There's a signal, quite like about 33%, like about a third more of Ashkenazi that vote for him. He is very righty. He's very righty. He's on Netanyahu's right, and he approaches national religious. Remember, there are religious people who are not even Zionists. You've seen towards the end about the Haredim and so on. But he's talking about national religions, right-winger, higher middle classes. Well, he himself he's a millionaire because he had a startup and he made an exit, and he doesn't have to live anymore. To work anymore for a living. So he lives in politics. And then again, Ashkenazis. There was a scandal regarding him. He's quite kind of a sport guy. Like, he's really nice guy. Really, he's a nice guy. He's very righty, but he's a very nice and appealing guy. And he tries to, whenever you touch upon the Ashkenazi Sephardic issue, he will go, or religious, secular people, he'll go, what are you talking about? We are all one people, one nation. We're all brothers, right? He's one brothers of he and the next guy, Yair Lapid, are brothers. They were called the brothers. And he tried to also approach the Sephardic vote by finding a religious guy. Well, Sephardic religious people are not like Ashkenazi. Ashkenazi are more strict. The Sephardic guy believes in God, goes with a kippah, eats kosher, but he'll ride his car to see a soccer game on Saturday. That's their practice, that's their way, and they are not like, they are looking at the essence, not at the practice. They are looking not at the technicalities, they are looking at how do I feel, right? And he tried to find an Ashkenazi guy, a Sephardi guy, that will be known, someone who started very low, like the poor kid, and rose. He found a former soccer player that was an idol. Generations of kids grew on him, with him. His name is Eli Ohana. And he said, join me he gave me the spot. Eli Ohana agreed, took a movie and said, I'm inviting you. And then, from within, inside his party, hell broke. The other candidates didn't want to accept him. There were resignations from the list of candidates. They said, we are withdrawing from the party. You can't do that. And he was really in big trouble. I mean, he really rocked the boat here. There was a huge problem here. He couldn't kind of take it back. It would have been too much. And the exit was by Eli Ohana resigning himself. He said, I don't want it. That's enough for me. I don't want the load on me and my family. And Eli Ohana himself withdrew.
And why, what was the reason for the furor? Why were they so upset with Netanyahu?
Bennett.
Yeah, why were they so upset with this soccer player?
So the people, I mean, the most, I can't talk for everyone, and what I'm saying might be controversial because he will say to me, what are you talking about? But the common opinion is that it was because it was racist, because of race.
So he was Sephardic, but it really wasn't the fact that he was Sephardic, it was a racial racial. Well,
that's what they said. Yeah, it's in Israel. That's racial. That's race. That's racism. That's racism. In Israel, we're all Jewish. So if it's between Sephardic and Ashkenazi, and you are not coming here because you are Sephardic, then it's racist. And it was kind of. It was. He didn't mean to. But the boat was really rocking, and again the racial genie, the racial issue came out.
And it's just based on skin color. It's just darker than.
It's different cultures that we are trying to kind of merge in Israel, and it's not easy. It's working to an extent, but it's not. Okay, there was a president already who was Sephardic, one. Okay, there were 2 or 3 chief of staff that were, but there was no prime minister yet. Who was like they're talking about a glass ceiling. Okay, so and you're asking me as an Israeli if it exists. Well, I am Ashkenazi, so. And I myself I'm not racist, and I don't look at it, but some people look. Usually the people that see the racism are from the weaker part.
Yeah.
So I feel it less. I don't personally do it, and I don't personally feel it.
Right.
But probably the people who feel that are verbalizing it. Yeah. It exists. It exists. Yeah. Depending how deep you go. Hey guys, we're all Americans, okay? But there is racism here in America, and every time a black boy is being shot, okay, of course, everyone, the formal people will say, no, it's not racism, you went violent, okay? And then the adversaries will say, you wouldn't have shot a white boy who did the same. Are they right? Who can tell me without being non-PC? So, it's basically the same. Right. Here is Lieberman, חברים. חברים is friends. That's what I do when I'm getting comfortable. Call it friends. So, Lieberman is Russian descent, he is a Russian immigrant, and his voters are seculars, right-wingers, Ashkenazis, and Russian immigrants. He took a big hit lately. We talked about him in the last time. His party is called Israel Beitenu, Israel Our Home. And again, I call him Lieberman. He's the leader, he's the sole leader, totally undemocratic. He's a very good friend, also personally, of Putin. and takes after him in the way that he rules the party. He's the only one that decides on who is going into the list that is going to the Knesset. He changes it every time, just throws out people and puts in new people. A total dictator.
You don't have
He's-
any numbers at the bottom, really.
The what?
The little,
Ashkenaz Sephardic.
Yeah, no, because they did. It's only Ashkenazi,
Oh,
almost only. They didn't. I didn't have the information. They didn't give all the parties. They gave the ones that were not obvious or the very obvious that they wanted to show. They didn't show. Lieberman is now today is Israel's foreign minister. Right? He's very righty. Originally, he was very righty. Sometimes he's centralizing himself. There was a time that I thought, I still think, but maybe it will take some time, because Netanyahu shuffled the cards with that elections. But he was going towards the central, and I thought that he would be the next prime minister after Netanyahu. I don't know if I'll be right, but if you talk to me, had you talked to me, some of you probably did, but 6 months ago I said I was sure that he's going to be the next prime minister after Netanyahu. I don't know when, could be after a few years, but I said he's the next person. I still think he has a good chance, very good chance, but he has some problems lately. His party, he himself was complicated in a very, with a few trials. He was suspected that he basically to bribe, that he did some criminal stuff, like, or people leaked him information, secret information about investigations against him. He once hit a child, okay, that was fresh enough to throw a stone or whatever. So he was really complicated with a lot of trials. There was, after the last elections, it was in the middle of the trial. He was in the middle of the trial. So he waited. He didn't become the foreign minister. It was kept for him. The office was kept on by Netanyahu until he was acquitted. There was one morning, about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, where he was acquitted. It was a very dramatic day because had he not been acquitted, he had to resign and go to jail maybe. But he was acquitted, came out clean, so formally he's clean. And now there is a new thing about his party. He is not involved, the police didn't find that he's involved. May I add yet? But so right now he has no personal problem, but his party has a huge problem. So he had like about 12 seats in the Knesset before the whole scandal broke, and now he has about 5. Okay, and he's kind of going back to his old constituents, which were always in the beginning Russian immigrants.
And what economic level are most of the supporters? Is it middle class or lower middle class? Or
Usually middle class, not lower, not higher, kind of in the middle. What really characterizes them is that they are right-wingers. Most of them are Ashkenazis, right-wingers. Okay, and again, he goes for security and for nationalism. Right now, Israel they are starting to run commercials and different videos related to this. Even today it was like the 3rd evening that they ran. He's talking about his ticket now is death penalty for terrorists. Terrorists do not need to stand trial; they need to be executed. That's his cue. Very, very blunt, straight to the point.
can't follow prison. they need to stand trial and then they'll be accused, right?
Well, the way he says it, you
Think it otherwise.
can take it any way you want. All right? He doesn't have to say, kill them as you catch them. But, you know, it happened that there were like scandals like those in Israel, where it was a very, 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 very famous one. It was called Bus 300. Bus number 300 was captured by terrorists. Terrorists died. After that, after the Israeli army raid on the bus, terrorists died. And then some photographer issued a picture where they see the terrorists walking between two soldiers.
Wow.
That was in the 80s. And, right. So, anyway, it happened. So here is Lieberman, חברים. Here is the other brother. Okay, there were two brothers. Remember Bennett and Yair Lapid. Now, Yair Lapid, there was a very dramatic event in Israel. In the summer of 2011, there was a middle-class protest in Israel. Very dramatic, very earth-shaking. Basically, it was the most influential event that influenced the last elections. The elections took a turn, and the issue was economy, and there was a huge protest of middle class in Israel. Not one window was shuttered. Not one window was shuttered. There was one evening, the climax was that one evening there were a million people outside. Million people outside equals to 50 million outside in the streets here in America. At one evening. It was measured by, not just by the eye, by cell phone activity. Okay, so they took the measurement of the area before and after. Throughout Israel, there were demonstrations, and those demonstrations basically reflected the frustration of the Israeli middle class that has to carry the burden of Israel's existence on its shoulders, and those shoulders are shrinking and shrinking because the population in Israel is changing, and secular population is shrinking, but it has still to carry the burden. We talked about it last time and so on, so I'm not going to repeat it, but Yair Lapid, who is a very gifted reporter, became a politician, and he said, I'll go there and I'll fix it for you. And he won 19 seats. He was the first time that he's going into politics, and he's getting 19 seats, almost 20 seats of 120. And he became the treasurer of Israel. He's not trained to be treasurer. He has no economic, education. He said, I'll be a good administrator. Netanyahu set him up. He knew it, because being the treasurer is not a popular, job. And he knew that it will hit him hard. But Netanyahu put him in the corner and said, hey, you said you came to change economy. Come, be the treasurer. Go ahead, be my guest. So he basically forced him into it, but he couldn't say no. And what Netanyahu expected, Netanyahu is very, very sharp. Happened. He lost a lot of support, but he was the rising star of last time. The other rising star was Bennett. And they both are hated by Netanyahu. He is hated by Netanyahu just because he holds different opinions, and Bennett is personally hated by Netanyahu, and the worse, he is hated by Sarah Netanyahu, Netanyahu's wife. And she is the one, if you think that I'm obeying my wife, she's really the one who must be obeyed. So, and you know my wife, I obey her. You know my wife. All right, so Sarah Netanyahu hated Bennett. And now let's go back to Bennett. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going forward. So here's Bennett. Sarah Netanyahu hated Bennett. He was Netanyahu's aide. At some point, he withdrew, like many of his aides. No one can really hold too much by Netanyahu. It's very hard, and Sarah is running everything from behind the screen. A lot of scandals about Sarah Netanyahu. So, him and Yair Lapid made an agreement. They are brothers, two young, bright, new promise politically, and they decided they are not going to the government alone. Either Netanyahu gets both of them, or doesn't get either of them. And Netanyahu could not form a government. They were 31 votes together. Netanyahu could not form a government without them. So they went into the government together. When they went into the government, they started, each has his own agenda and stuff. They kind of started quarreling between them. They are not brothers anymore, but they are still brothers. We call them the brothers. Again, he is aiming for seculars, high middle class, Ashkenazis. He is Ashkenazi himself. Okay, you can see 51%. Basically, most of Tel Aviv is voting for him. Tel Aviv is his strongest place. Okay, 29% of Mizrahim, and 51%. That's significant. A lot of Ashkenazis are voting for him. Okay, here's another party, a new party. He is perceived to be the new rising star, because the falling star, yeah. So again, he took a lot of heat because he was in executive position and did what he could, came with a lot of good intentions, couldn't appeal everyone, and he's okay. He's okay, but it will not be 19 votes. Now Bennett took a lot of heat, I told you when. Yes.
Now you said Mizrahi instead of Sephardi.
It's almost the same.
It's all the same? I understood there was a difference.
Almost the same. Mizrahim and Sfaradim are almost the same. I mean, if you look at the east, west, north, it's not exactly, but in the Israeli concept, Mizrahim and Sfaradim are like Ashkenazim and whites. It's kind of the same. Yeah. Okay. This is a new party, and this is expected to be the new promise, the new surprise. His name is Moshe Kahlon. He's Sephardic. Very talented, started from very low, very poor family. The party is called Kulanu, which is all of us. And again, you see, a lot of people are voting to him, and it's almost the same number. So he's taking everyone. He came from the Likud. He was the communication minister under Netanyahu in the previous government, before the elections. And again, he couldn't be near Netanyahu. He hates him personally. They're not talking about it, but all the commentators are talking about it. He doesn't say a bad word about anyone. He's a very sympathetic person, very nice person. He withdrew from the Likud. He said, "I'm going to do some business," and he came back to these elections. His main claim is, "I am the good old Likud, not the crazy nationalist Likud. I'm Menachem Begin's Likud." I am righty, but I also think of the people. He is very rightly politically. No return of land for anything. This is our country and so on. But socially, he's saying, I'm going to bring the country back to the people that own the country. He is very likable. He did, when he was in the executive job, it wasn't as hard as the treasurer. He was the communication minister, and he made the revolution of the cellular companies. He basically took away the monopoly that the cellular companies had, and they equated the prices. They went on the same prices. It was a monopoly market, and he opened it for everyone, and he lowered dramatically the cellular bills to people. People loved it. At some point, at his peak, Netanyahu said to his ministers, "You must all be Kahlons. Okay, do like he did." So he's considered to be the next promise or the next surprise. He is going for the social ticket, of course, but he's also talking about the right political side. Again, note, seculars, but lower middle class. Also light religious, like the Likud. They are going for the same people. Netanyahu is losing votes to him. Because if you're, yes?
When you say social, you mean socialism or party?
We are talking about the social aspect.
Ah, I see.
The social aspect. Socially, in the social aspect, he is lefty. He is for social security payments, for welfare, for lowering prices, for helping families with a lot of kids. Okay, lower middle class, low middle class, and also even under the poverty line. Meretz. Meretz is kind of the Green Party. Okay, seculars, high middle class, Ashkenazis. Look, 12% of Sephardic, 69% of Ashkenazis are voting for them. Okay, again, they are very lefty in all aspects. Okay, return the territories, do peace with the Arabs, socially help the poor. Okay, this is Meretz. I put it in two places, right here and right there. Right? We are going to the religious parties. Yahadut HaTorah, I didn't even put a picture of a leader, because the leadership is a council of rabbis. It's not one leader. There's a person that always leads the political, party in the Knesset, but he's not doing the real decisions. Whoever tells him how to vote is a rabbis of council of rabbis, and they talk with God, and they know what to do.
And they're against the state of Israel.
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't, for them, a state of a Jewish state should be religious, not secular. And only when the Messiah comes. So they are not supposed to, they are not recognizing the state. Again, they have a lot of different factions within them. Some of them are even going with the Palestinians. There's the Palestinian, the Jew of the Palestinians. There is such an element. So with a long beard and so on, that talks against Israel and the wish to the destruction of Israel, and he's in the Palestinian parliament. So there is something. This is the extreme of extreme, even within them. But those guys, they live in Israel. They are protected by the soldiers. They are getting welfare. Some of them don't, depending on how extreme you are. Some of them don't want to get. At least they are honest enough and are not getting, the welfare. They say Be'ezrat Hashem and God will help and that's it. And you know what? They live. And they have kids and they live somehow. Those guys don't, and again, they are anti-Zionists. They are anti-Zionist per se. They agree, of course they agree because they give power and money to be in the Knesset, which is the legislative body, but they do not want to be part of the executive branch. So when they are in the coalition, they are not ministers. They are acting as vice ministers. Technically, when there is no person appointed to be a minister, the prime minister is the responsible person. And if there is a bill related to, for example, they held the health office. Okay? So, if there was some bill about health, then the prime minister signed it, but the vice minister was him, was one of them. So a person came every morning, he was called the vice minister, not the minister. He took all the executive, decisions. He decided what happens, and when it had to have the minister's signature, it went to Netanyahu, and they signed. So they are officially not in the executive branch because they don't want to cooperate with the state of Israel.
How many seats do they have?
Huh?
How many seats?
About 7. We'll go there. I on purpose did not touch their power yet, but it's the next slides after I'm done with the different parties. Again, they're all religious, Haredim, Ashkenazis, extreme religious. Okay, another party who is Haredim, but you remember I told you about Ashkenazi, they are Sephardic, they are less extreme. They are more practical. They are in the government. They are Haredim, but they are in the government. Aryeh Deri is a convicted felon. He spent in jail 3 years for bribery. Yeah, and then another 7 years of cooling down, chilling out outside the political system because he was convicted per felon, so he couldn't serve as politician for 7 years. And he's back. He founded, again, the religious parties always have a leader, a political leader, and a rabbi. Their rabbi was Ovadia Yosef, who died a year ago. Exactly a year ago. Died. He was the leader of Shas. Aryeh Deri was the leader of Shas since 1984 until he went to jail in 1995, 9, something like that. Went to jail, 95. Rabin, 95, yeah, right after Rabin died. And then someone else took his spot in order to lead the party for 15 years. Okay? In order to lead the party, a guy named Eli Yishai. He's the next party I'm going to show you. When he came back from jail and he's chilling down time after he served, he was given his political spot back by Rabbi Yosef, and basically pushed aside the guy that kept the party for him. So what happened was that Shas split. Shas split. So Aryeh Deri, again, socially he is very, very lefty. He is talking to the transparent people, the people that we don't see, the guys that are collecting the garbage, the guys that work at the places that vote for Meretz and for Yair Lapid, cleaners guys, the taxi drivers that take us after we hang out in the bar, in the pub, so on. He is their speaker. He's talking to Sephardic, lower middle class and under poverty line, religious and light religious. Again, it's kind of, in the Sephardic population, it's kind of, the borders are not clear. Right?
Doron,
Yeah,
do you mean ultra-religious or do you mean ultra-Orthodox?
it's the same, because there is no other religion in Israel but Orthodox. So
Maybe
I
in
could,
Israel, but I mean, there are folks in this room who might be very religious. They're just not Orthodox.
I know, but in Israel they are Jewish, but they don't, in Israeli eyes they don't know better. You see what I'm saying? They're patronizing, they own the religion in their eyes. I mean, you hear people, you know, it's amazing. Here is an anecdote. My son, 18, calls me, he lives in Israel. Lived all his life. When I left to America, he stayed there with his mom. My wife wouldn't let me take him. So he calls me up 2 weeks ago, and he says, and he knows a little better because he's been here. So he visited the place, saw people. And he also doesn't really grasp all the way, not to the extent that he can explain it, what is Reform Judaism. So he calls me up and he says, hey, I'm talking with a friend now. And can you explain to him what's Reform Judaism? So I told him, you know, it's on the phone, it's a Sunday morning, and I'm between Trader Joe's and Costco. And I'm starting to talk with him, and I explain to him, to the best of my ability with his tools, with what I know that he knows. And he goes, what do you mean? You want to get to the point that you'll have a rabbi woman? I say, hey, you just don't understand. Why not? Why not? Can you explain to me why not? Why is a woman, why can't a woman be a rabbi? He goes, it's just